Welcome back, everybody, to a special episode of Conversational Pace. We have the Hoka Tecton X3 here today. I feel like I said this like one episode or two ago where I was like, perhaps one of the most requested shoes on the channel, but I feel like this has been one of the shoes that's gotten the most media attention ever since Jim at UTMB 2023 when he wore a prototype of what eventually became this shoe. There was also the limited release of the Tecton X 2.5. Just for those wondering, neither of us got to try out the 2.5. I got to hold it, but most of this is not a 2.5 comparison because that shoe's never going to come out again. So we just got to erase the 2.5 from our memory and just look at the 2 versus the 3. But we've got it. We did a lot of running in it, and we're here to talk about it. Before we get going, these shoes were provided to us by Hoka and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like a shoe or not because we want to keep these reviews authentic, beneficial for you, so no one's going to get to review or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. Finn, how are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great. I actually crammed for the test today. I got bonus miles in this shoe racing in them. Did the local Ogden Skyline 55K race. We were talking offline. It's in my top 5 favorite courses in my 8-9 year ultra running career. Loved it. And then actually afterwards joined Jules for a little shopping session at Costco. And you know how you typically go to Costco and you're picking all the free samples of food? There was this sales rep, and I'm forgetting the name of the company, but it was these state-of-the-art massage chairs. And I told the guy that I ran Skyline, and he was only giving people 10 minutes in the massage chair, but he gave me a minute for every mile I ran. So I sat in there for 34 minutes.
People
And
were probably so pissed at you.
oh, dude, it was like literally people. Like I think I saw 8 different people in each chair swapping through. And
Dang, dude, I thought you were going to say that he was going to send us a couple for a review on the
dude,
Conversational Pace channel.
I actually didn't even think to ask him. And but I'm going back tomorrow. He's going to be there all week, so I'm going to go back
Oh,
tomorrow.
dude, let's get them delivered to the Airbnb for Western states next year, and we'll do interviews from the massage chairs.
Dude, that first of all, great idea. Let's
Everyone
write
gets
that
one.
one down. Guess how much these things retail for?
Dude, they're expensive. They're like 10 grand or something, right?
Yeah, $12,000. Yeah,
It's a big
insane.
investment. It's a big investment. You got to really like massages.
But yes, you raced the World at 100K, obviously, and I felt like to do this shoe justice because, like you said, it's so anticipated. I had to race in it too, so
Yeah.
used it today.
And
What I did.
this has been marketed as a trail racing shoe. Like it's an ultra trail racing super shoe by Hoka's definition. So, of course, we would not be good reviewers if we didn't do a race in this shoe. So, we just went for it. And I'm glad that we did because that probably greatly enhances the quality of the review. We'll throw up a graphic right now quickly for the shoe stats. There they are. Pause it, read it, do all that good stuff. Let's go through the materials because we've got a lot of changes, a lot of new things for this shoe. So the upper, it is still a matrix upper like the Tecton X2, but the matrix material definitely got more pliable, and there's actually less of it than the Tecton X2. They moved to more of a fabric overlay in the forefoot, a pretty flexible toe bumper, not really giving us any protection there. Big stretch mesh panel over the top of the forefoot that leads into just a knit, I guess, piece that we'll call the tongue, no padding or anything like that. It's just a stretch knit. We got a ghillie style lacing system. And I guess one thing that might bum some people out is there was no like extra emergency eyelet at the top. Like if you're trying to do like the runner's loop or anything like that, it's not really doable with this shoe. I'm not really quite sure why you would need to, just with the way that this whole upper is constructed, but yeah, we'll dive into the nuances of that more in a little bit. A little bit of plastic overlay along the side, kind of piping by the laces and going into the heel. Heel cup is unstructured, just material with a couple pieces of padding on the inside. It's very difficult to see it, but it kind of feels like your standard racing shoe where there's just like a little peanut sized piece of foam on either side of the heel, just under the ankle bone, and then it's just bare fabric on the back. Yes, the last big piece of this upper is the new ankle gaiter, and it's a very stretchy knit material that basically continues on from the tongue. This was definitely probably one of the most polarizing pieces of the shoe when, we saw it at the running event last November in Texas. Was like, "Oh, I thought maybe that custom gaiter was just like a custom Jim Walmsley shoe sort of thing. Wow, I can't believe Hoka is actually going to produce a shoe with a full high top gaiter." Well, here it is. They did it. It's got a lot of stretch to it. What do you think? It feels like it's about the same thickness as just like most standard crew socks. Maybe even
Yeah,
a little thinner. Like my features socks are a little thicker than this.
and it has the same wrapping effect somehow as a sock too. It's not like it sits off the ankle bone or anything. It actually really conforms very well to your Achilles, calf, ankle area.
Yeah. Yeah. I was worried that it was going to be too snug because like you can see the opening, like it's small, but it does have a generous amount of stretch to it. We got a pull tab on the front. I kind of wanted to pull tab on the back, but I can also see how this could get in the way. So maybe they just felt the need like to have at least one pull tab on the shoe. So it's on the front. Did I miss anything with the upper? I think that was it. Yeah, and again, it's matrix material.
Love
Majority of
it.
it's matrix. Love the matrix. Midsole. This is probably the biggest revamp compared to the Tecton X2. So this is now full PIBA. It's 2 layers. Let's see what I wrote down. 2 layers of PIBA. The top layer directly underfoot is a softer PIBA. Then you have the dual parallel carbon plates, just like the previous Tecton X2 and the original Tecton, but these plates received a update with the shaping, so you can actually see one of the wings jets out and flares up on the lateral side of the shoe, and on the medial side, there's a little bit that comes up as well. I was very curious about this like triangle of carbon plate that you could see and be like, wow, is this going to be really sharp? Am I going to feel this? Be curious when we go into the fit if you noticed anything.
The North Faces have those wings too, right?
Yeah, but they're on the forefoot.
On the forefoot.
So
Okay.
it's interesting that these are more directly under the arch. The whole point of it is it's supposed to enhance stability without getting away because the shoe is higher. We're 35 millimeters in the forefoot, 40 in the heel. It's high off the ground, so I understand why Hoka felt the need to widen the plates and increase stability, like right under the ankle, essentially.
Same platform though as the as V2.
Oh, really? Yeah, like underfoot here.
Yes, underfoot.
So it got a little taller, but it didn't get any
Not any
wider.
wider.
Okay, so hopefully the wider plate helps with the stability, but we'll dive into that in a bit. And then we have the bottom layer of PIBA, which is the thicker layer, and it's a little bit firmer than the top layer. So it's supposed to, help out with again the stability and probably durability as well. The carbon plate is also acts as the rock plate. Moving on to the outsole, it's a new design, Vibram Mega Grip rubber on the light base. It is one piece, so it's one piece of rubber, but there is a good amount of exposed foam. I read, and I think that's right, 4 millimeter lugs all the way throughout. They're pretty big lugs. Definitely more bite than the Tecton X2, which had those little square like 3 millimeter lugs, and there's just the forefoot piece and the rear piece, which I'm sure you were probably happy about because I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but you full on sheared pieces of rubber off of the original Tectons before.
Uh, yes, back to back on back to back runs, doing sections of the Presidential Traverse in the New Hampshire White Mountains. 3 miles
Yeah.
into each
So
run.
so hopefully this one piece helped you out with durability a little bit better. That's it for the materials.
Delamination, like crazy
Yeah.
fast delamination.
And you did it on 2 pairs. So like it
Back to
wasn't
back
a
pairs.
fluke. Yeah.
It must have been a bad shipment or something. I have no idea.
Yeah. Something. But what kind of running mileage did you end up with in this shoe?
I achieved extra credit with the shoe, did 137 miles. The first 60 or 70, I was doing a lot of hiking actually, up at Snowbird on the Speed Goat course, Upper Mill Creek here in the Central Wasatch, like a lot of like these like 2, 3 mile, 3,000, 3,500 foot climbs right back down descents, steep, loose, rocky terrain. We were kind of texting about it as I was doing those days. You're like, I think you should try to diversify sort of the portfolio of running with this shoe. And I'd say in the second half, got on some more, douche grade climbs, long sort of loping descents. The closest thing we have to California carpet here in the Wasatch, doing some of that, just seeing sort of like how that, like seeing this plate in action, climbing and descending on just more reasonable terrain. And then finally, the race that I just did today, the Skyline 55K, it's got 34 miles and 14,000 feet of elevation change, but it's a very switchback course on the sort of cruxy climbs. And like, for example, I had this 10-mile descent with 2,700 feet of elevation loss, which was like perfect to see, like, to
Yes.
turn over the shoe in action too. So I felt like I did some dishonest running in this shoe, or like stuff that was slightly out of context, but also core competency stuff as well.
Totally.
How about you?
I got in 122.5 miles, so a little bit of extra credit as well. I also did a race in this shoe. I ran the Waldo 100K last weekend from when we recorded this. So my longest run was 62 miles. It took a little over 12 hours. I ended up climbing and I climbed 26,000 feet in these shoes, and I got about 23 hours of testing time on foot. I also did make sure to do a few runs after Waldo, to see how the shoes performed after a continuous 12-hour effort. Because there's some shoes where they feel great during the race, and then you go try them on again, and you're like, oh, I completely murdered this foam. So made sure to do some running there. I also did get these shoes fully submerged in water the other day because
I did not,
I wanted
unfortunately.
I wanted to see how they drained and how this collar held water. It didn't seem like it was an issue for Jim at Western States because he at least wore this upper on, I think, the 2.5 shoe. So I was like, well, it must have been good enough. All the rest of my running, outside of the Waldo course, it was, here, dry, hot, dusty trails in Ashland. The Waldo 100K course is like, for the most part, pretty like amazingly buffed out groomer trail. You do a huge amount on the PCT. There's a couple super steep, slightly technical sections. So I did get, at least a little bit of that in there. Handful of hours of running in the dark as well, which I just suck at running in the dark. So it was good practice to see like how stable the shoe can be on its own without me like being able to see very well. First off, sizing. How is your size?
Uh, I am look true to size, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
got a
yeah.
US 12.
Yeah, I got a 10. It felt great. Lengthwise, it feels just like the previous Tectons. It feels a little bit roomier in the forefoot than the previous Tecton. Like, and the reason I'm saying that with so much confidence is because I literally have one on one foot and one on the other right now. Tecton X2 is on my right foot, X3 is on my left foot. I'm wiggling my toes, and I have more space to
Yeah.
move my toes in the Tecton X3. I think a lot of that is because we're looking at more non-matrix in the forefoot,
Yeah.
whereas the Tecton X2, the matrix actually extends all the way just about to the toe.
So it's way more stretchy there. Like, I don't know if you feel that right now wearing the two, but it's way more stretchy in the forefoot.
Yeah,
It's like
like
more like vertical space.
yeah, and like I don't know if I would say it's wide, but I would just say like it's higher volume than the Tecton X2. It's higher volume than the Zagama. It feels about similar volume to like maybe the Mafate Speed 4, which is like slightly more than just regular volume, I would say. What do you think? Is like because I didn't have any toe pinching issues or blister problems from a forefoot, length perspective.
Agree across the board.
Yeah. And then yeah, so it seems pretty true to size. I was very curious how this whole lacing system and like the lockdown was going to work, just because there is no like gusseted tongue or additional like underfoot wrap that can get a little bit snugger with the foot. It's just like however well this material wraps around your foot. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Like I descended, I think the steepest mile I descended was about 1,300 feet with like loose rocky stuff. And if there's anything that's gonna like jack up your toes, it's probably a mile like that.
Yeah.
This passed with flying colors. So like I thought the lockdown was awesome. And I think one of the reasons why the lockdown was great is because of this high top gaiter. I felt like for me that it like dispersed any lace bite pressure across the top like much more evenly because normally your foot slides forward and you just hit the top of the shoe right here. I got a little bit more room to like press forward and it felt like more of an invisible fit.
Yeah.
What did you think about this upper?
Couple things. Yeah, I think the first thing to acknowledge here for me is the integrated ankle collar gaiter. And there's two things here for me. I wonder if when we look back in time, this is the shoe that makes externally layered on gaiters obsolete. And I also
Mm,
wonder of all the things that come out of this shoe. I mean, we can probably talk about some of the midsole innovations, but how many other shoe brands are going to follow suit with this like very readily apparent like mid crew type built-in gaiter? If you
yeah.
haven't touched this shoe yet, like we were saying earlier, like we were saying, the midsole super. I mean, sorry, the material is super soft. It still somehow wraps perfectly around like the Achilles area, ankle bone, etc., and nothing gets in. Like I
I
put
got 0 dirt in my
zero
shoe. I
dirt,
mean, a
no
little bit of
debris.
dust, but no debris. Yes, exactly.
It works as good or better as any gaiter brand out there. No offense to the gaiter brands, they do great work, but I'm just blown away by that technology component. That's the first thing for
100%.
me. I will also add like staying with the heel. I when I first like my first look at this shoe was like this whole area on the back of the shoe, the upper, is super soft and malleable. And I was shocked at how good of lockdown I got despite that. Like the heel counter
Yes.
here, super
Mhm.
soft, pretty malleable. So if you are somebody that deals with like heel collar, heel counter issues, like in more stiff shoes, I think this is a great option to go with. Also found it weird on first impression. Like again, this is like, 2 weeks ago. This gaiter material just like stretches into, or it kind of becomes the tongue of the shoe.
Yeah, there's
And I,
no
and I
seam or anything.
no seam, and I wondered how that would affect lockdown. Fine. I think also like the matrix effect is a big factor here. And then I guess the last thing I would say, because I'm sure you have a lot to fill in, I do believe that like Matrix is amazing. I did have one actually traumatic incident today. You can see here.
Did
Uh,
you
I
rip it?
I ripped it, dude. I like just
Is it like all like, can you poke your finger through it?
yeah. Well, I don't want base. It's on its last threads. I don't want to do it because I want to keep
Really?
running in the shoe. But I just
Is
grazed.
it, um, is that rip is it at the seam?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just like
It's at the
it
seam.
poke a hole in the matrix material, you, like, ripped it at the seam.
Ripped it at the seam.
Interesting, okay, so I was about to say, are you the first person to ever, like, fully blow through matrix straight through? But
I
no, you ripped it at the seam, but also that is worth noting, you did rip it
It
at the
is, and
seam.
I to be fair
Hmm,
to this shoe, I don't think it was wear and tear. If I recall, I was running the Skyline 55K starts at 5 a.m. We ran the first hour and a half in pitch dark. I believe I grazed like a branch that was extended low on the dirt on the single track. I was running through like a bunch of just like high grass, and it just caught and just
yeah.
ripped. And I think
Do
I was
you
like
hmm, that's a
I was
little
towing
worrisome,
off.
though.
Yeah.
It's a
Dude,
little
me
worrisome. Do you
me me and Tectons don't always get along. Like, I was
yeah,
like
gosh.
that V1, the delamination that happened in, like, the back of the outsole, like, twice in I don't know.
Do you think that was a fluke, or do you think that's where that's do you think that's like, an actual, like, extremely weak point, or do you think you would have ripped whatever you were wearing,
I
shy of,
feel
like,
like
a Norda?
I feel like I would have ripped anything. I wanna believe that I would have ripped anything I was wearing. This is very it's very destabilizing for me to see this.
Yeah, I know that, like,
It
sketches me
disrupts a
out a
lot of my
little bit.
worldviews about upper material.
I know, that worries me because I have 0, like, signs of where like, again, as just like my last Tectons, my lettering on my A is just starting to peel just ever so slightly. Um, but there's no wear at all on my
Yeah.
upper, like, it looks brand new. Kind of
One
going
last
back
thing
to the
one last
oh,
thing.
yeah.
Finn learns a new shoe vocabulary word every episode. I learned that this is called the vamp, the area between the bottom of the lacing chain and the front of the toe, the vamp. So like
Oh,
this
yeah,
whole
that's
area,
that's one that doesn't get,
dude, the
that
vamp.
that word doesn't get thrown
I
around
didn't
very
know.
often. Stretch material over the vamp. Thumbs up. Going back to the gaiter, I was very curious. My bet before I put the shoe on was like, I bet I will run in this shoe and I'll just be kind of like, nah, for the gaiter. Like, if they made this shoe without the gaiter, I wouldn't be wishing it had the gaiter. After now having run 120 plus miles in the shoe, I think the gaiter and the way it integrates to the tongue and the heel, I think it improves the fit of the shoe.
I agree.
I think it actually makes it better, which is going to be, I think, a spicy take that I'm glad we both agree on, is that I think this gaiter makes the fit of the shoe better. The one thing that I was very curious about though was, does this help me with increase of stability of the shoe? And I don't think it did. Like, I think this gaiter is purely for keeping debris in the shoe, and it does not act like an ankle brace in any way, shape, or form. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about the reasons why this shoe is more stable than you would expect has to do with maybe those winglets that they added into the carbon plates.
Mhm.
And then also, if we want to talk about it when we get to like the outsole, just some of the ways that they structured like the rubber parts connecting the back and front of the outsole there.
Yeah, yep, totally. Let's move on to the underfoot feel and the ride of the shoe. So we both raced in it. We both got in a ton of climbing. We both got in some like douche grade running. What do you think of the dual layer, full 100% PIBA outsole? I mean, not outsole, midsole.
I feel like I most noticed the plates while running uphill. I felt like my efficiency like dramatically increased, especially on like the douche grade. Like for me, I consider that to be like 6% to 12% uphill grade running. Yeah, so that's where I noticed the carbon plate. I did not really notice the winglets piece that we were talking about for like a from like a stability factor standpoint, but I also would guess that if I didn't notice it, that's probably a win for the technology. Like
I
I'm not
agree.
supposed to notice it. Like it's when I feel a sense of stability, but I can't attribute it to anything. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think the crazy thing, because so there's a couple things that I feel about the ride of the shoe. Um, First thing that sticks out, I was telling you offline, like, because you're wearing both right now. I don't know if you can take one off to show V2, but like, it's the same platform width. Like, if we can show that on the screen, V3, V2, it's the exact platform width, which is wild because this is definitely a softer, bouncier midsole experience. And they somehow found a way to improve on stability without widening the shoe, which is
So
wild to me.
do you feel like your Tecton X3 was more stable than your Tecton X2?
I I do. I do, but I also like now that I have tested more super shoes, my whole theory on super shoes is that in general it's like a graduate level shoe. And I think what I was doing with the Tecton X2 and the like Adidas Speed Ultra, etc., is like I figured you could do what you do with other shoes where it's like you run 20 to 30 miles in them and then they're race ready. I was having stability issues with this shoe for the first like 50 or 60 miles. And it wasn't until like 70 or 80 miles in that I really like got around to like understanding how the shoe operates. And I feel like if I had raced Skyline at mile 40 in the shoe versus 105, I'd be
Mhm.
I'd be giving you like a way different race report.
Yeah, that's a question that I had for you was, do you think it was more that it was a break-in period, or was it more you needed to learn how to like function with this much bounce underfoot? Because that's one thing I feel like we haven't actually addressed is like this Tecton X3, in my opinion, has a super shoe level of bounce underfoot. Like it is freaking bouncy.
It, exactly. I like I was saying, I think you have to work your way up to it. Like the foam is super bouncy. There's a lot of rebound to it. Because of that, it was super hard for me to keep it under control. I was like turning my ankle quite a bit. I was falling off balance, etc. And it took like 80 miles to get that under control. especially, and again, maybe you can attribute that to like the fact that I was taking it a little bit out of scope on like super steep, super technical mountain terrain. Like I think for people
Mhm.
out there, like I don't consider UTMB to be like that technical of a race. Like my friend Jimmy Elam jokes that you can drive a golf cart on like 75% of the course. Um, so yeah, and also I feel like we've had a couple recent reviews where we were running in like less dynamic, more stable shoes. And like
Mhm.
I was like my feet, my whole like movement chain was just used to that. Um,
Yeah.
but like once you get a handle, super soft ride, also responsive, which is like straight Goldilocks zone for me. Like once you get a
Yeah.
handle on that, it's amazing.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown away at because so, like, this is full PIBA. The Nike Ultrafly is full Zoom X, but and yet I felt way more stable and comfortable in this shoe, and I think part of it is due to the shape, and I think probably the lower drop. Like, I think that Ultrafly is, like, 8 or 10 mil drop. This is 5, and just having, like, a little bit more heel and forefoot
Yeah.
rocker, yeah, it really does feel sustainable once you get used to the amount of bounce that it has, because I hated hiking in the Ultrafly. Like, it is not a blowout friendly shoe. My knee totally cratered on me the last 20 miles of Waldo, and I was, limited to like a very low range of motion shuffle for the last 20 miles. And this shoe actually did really good at that too. Like I didn't feel like I want to take these damn shoes off at, 12 to 15-minute mile pace while running. It actually felt okay. But I also had some 7-minute miles earlier on, and I was like, this shoe feels amazing. So it to me, it also, even though it's very bouncy, the smoothness of the shape of this midsole and probably in conjunction with the plates allowed me to feel comfortable at a much broader range of paces than, some of the other super foamed trail shoes. So that was a really fun plus to figure out that I just wouldn't have figured out on the trails. I also I really enjoy hiking in this shoe. This is like the first full carbon plated trail shoe that I actually didn't hate to hike in.
For those that haven't seen our other reviews, why do you like dislike the other shoes in like hiking environments?
It's due to the stiffness, like not being able to flex the forefoot counteracts the heel, and then, you're on your toes, but the heel's yanking down, and it would just like light my calves up, and I felt just less efficient, like I'm having to flex all this extra carbon. I didn't get that in this shoe, and I don't know if it's just that the rocker was correct or the plates thin out a little bit in the forefoot and get a little bit more flexible, but it felt fine. Like, it didn't feel like the carbon plates were a detriment while hiking.
Yeah.
So you said that you felt a little more stable in this than the Tecton X2. I thought that I felt a little bit less stable in this than the Tecton X2, but it was still stable enough. Like, I remember one of my comments with the Tecton X2 was, "This shoe's very stable, and I wish it were a little bit less stable and they had injected a little more fun into it." Because the Tecton X2's midsole foam was just frankly boring. This is that, like, v a little bit less stable for me, but still stable enough and way more fun.
Dude, you're the Hoka whisperer. They watch Conversational Pace, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, Jim had, all the ideas for Technox 3. It was actually us ripping apart the TX2 last year.
How much of a role do you think the outsole plays in promoting stability? Like the way it's
You
structured?
know, that's a good question because I think less than normal because we have the carbon plates in here. The carbon plates give a lot of the stiffness. Normally, a multi-pieced outsole would increase flexibility. A one-piece outsole would increase the stiffness. But I think they went to the full one-piece outsole here just to help with durability. I will say, so there's a lot of sections of exposed foam here. I do have a lot of holes. Like, I've got punctures underneath in here. Yeah, you've got them as well. No major chunks missing though.
Yeah.
While there's some punctures, nothing that I believe is compromising the integrity of the shoe from a ride standpoint. I also don't believe that it's actually affected the durability at all either. There's just it's just we just poked a couple holes. It's fine. One of them was pretty early, and I was worried that it would turn into like a full chunk missing, but it's totally fine. So I've got a couple little scrape marks on the midsole walls, but I have no like massive holes or pieces missing or anything like that. So I feel good about this PIBA holding up over time. So we've talked about how we've raced in it. We mostly raced in it because this is a racing shoe. We're reviewing it. We got to race in it. As an average consumer, Finn, would you like voluntarily race in the shoe again now?
I talk a lot about the shoe that's made for the people, the working class runners out there, and we talk about the Swiss Army knife. I think this is a Swiss Army knife racing shoe. I would race, as Sage Canaday once said, or always says, any surface, any distance. I would race almost any surface, any distance in this shoe. Sorry, not
Dude,
I
can
should say,
you
I
can
should
you
say
set
any
the
surface. I
marathon?
should say
Can you
any
set the
surface.
Tecton X3 marathon world record? Be the fastest person to ever run a marathon in the shoe.
I was trying to be clever. I should take back the surface part. Surfaces as it pertains to trail. Any trail surface, any distance.
Okay.
Dude, I saw Ludo. I mean, Ludo won Hard Rock. Ludo set a course record of Hard Rock in this. Jim
Yeah.
won UTMB
There
in a
Ludo
cross
is also in the 2.5.
2.5.
Um,
Okay.
we saw him on Adam Peterman's feed at Speed Goat. I bet we'll see them all over the place, around UTMB and some of the later fall races. I would also absolutely race in this again. I think I would save it for probably like 50 miles and up. I still feel faster in the Agravic Speed Ultra, but if I had to pick one shoe for racing everything up to say 100 miles, I would pick this over the Adidas because I feel way more comfortable in this for longer periods of time. I had a note written down for competitor shoes. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do an entire episode on comparing some of the more popular trail super shoes, and we'll just do kind of our totally unsolicited opinions on which one we just like the best, and we'll compare them all. So the only shoe that I think we'll really compare this to a little bit is the Tecton X2. But going back to racing, I would totally race in it again. And here's my question for you and also the audience. Is this a Western States shoe or is this a UTMB shoe? The reason I ask this question is because the Tecton X and X2 were designed around Western states. They were marketed around Western states. They were released before Western states. Then all of a sudden, Jim is wearing a prototype at UTMB and he wins UTMB in it. And now all of a sudden, this shoe is coming out before UTMB, but it has the same name as the previous shoes that are for Western states. So, like, I see a branding problem here. Is this a Western States shoe for most people or a UTMB shoe for most people?
Climbing in this shoe today, I was so like, it made me realize because I was actually thinking about this just independently. I think there's too much bite in this outsole for it to be a relevant Western States shoe.
Really? You
Yes.
would think like you think it would like be a detriment?
I think it's inefficient. Yeah.
Really? It's like too aggressive of an outsole.
It's too aggressive of an outsole in my like if you when you get this out of the box, that was another thing this is a super aggressive looking outsole out of the box, especially when like these nubs, the nubs that we both agree are really
Mm,
nothing are like fresh and you're looking at
yeah.
4 millimeters. It's the outsole is pretty different on this compared to the Tecton X2.
Like I don't think you need this shoe in the second half of the Western States course, but I think I would love this shoe for the first 55 miles of Western States. I initially had written down I think it's still a Western States shoe. But then after running some slightly more technical stuff on the Waldo course, I think it's one of the few shoes that can do both pretty well.
Remember last year when Tom and Dakota were racing and Tom was having anxiety about shoe changes because the race was just so tight and like Dakota was stretching him out before he could get that. I wonder if we're going to get to a point at Western States too where like you have to have just the complete shoe factoring in the inefficiencies of aid if you're in a super tight race.
Yeah, like you better start in a shoe that you're prepared to wear all the way to the finish. Or, well, in Jim, counter argument, Jim changed his shoes twice and still won.
Great point.
So like maybe it's still worth it, and you just mentally have to not like lose it when you start getting dropped, knowing that like I'm getting fresh bounce, I'm good.
That's a really good
Um,
point.
I wouldn't hesitate at all to wear this at Western States. The one thing that I would say is only average with the shoe is its ability to drain water, which was surprising. Matrix material is amazing at draining water. I got my feet totally soaked and it felt spongy and sloshy for a really long time. And I thought that maybe it was all like water soaking up into the gaiter, like slowly trickling down. But then when I touched it, it was almost dry. There's I don't we gotta wait. I don't know. I gotta talk to more people. There's something going on with this top layer of PIBA and almost like acting like a sponge in water. I don't know. Maybe it's the bucket seat. Maybe it is the open cells of the phone, like actually absorbing some water. But if you could hear the squish for not forever. I mean, once I got my feet soaked, like I was running for like 10 minutes before the
Mhm.
squish finally was gone and the shoes started to feel good. Other shoes I've run in, it's like 2 minutes. But this shoe, the midsole, something in this top layer of the midsole, it's also bucket seated pretty well. So it kind of holds water like a bathtub. It holds water a little bit longer than I want it to, but not forever. So I don't think it's a full deal breaker for me, but it's not great. So that was like one of my only negatives about the shoe. I also I run trails and crew socks anyways, so the ankle gaiter is not bugging me from a breathability standpoint. Like if you're one of those ankle sock people, maybe it becomes annoying, but I thought it was fine. Do you have any like gripes about the shoe? You got any major cons?
Well, I mean, I guess I really have to think more and get to the bottom of like, is this a freak accident or is it
Mhm.
symptomatic of something bigger, like just the durability of
Does
the.
your other one have any signs of stretching or wear or anything?
No, no,
It
it's
looks
just, it's
totally good,
it's
so
just the right. No, this is one of the most complete shoes we've ever reviewed, and like I feel very comfortable
yeah,
sharing it with like the mass market. I think the one thing that I would want to reinforce is like, and this is myself included, like there was an era when I wasn't reviewing shoes. I had to be more careful. It's like you do if there's a shoe that you really want to race in, you maybe put 20 to 30 miles in it and then you save the foam for like race day, right? And I do think like in the same way that Hard Rock is a PhD level 100 miler, I think
yeah,
this is like an advanced shoe. And I would really
yeah.
encourage people, if you're going to buy this shoe, to spend some time in it, like spend significant time in it, and maybe even buy two. Like
By 2, we gotta talk about the price
I
in a few
know,
minutes.
but I think it's
We're
a
running
good
long on
value.
time, but I think we kinda just have to, like, this
Yeah,
shoe's we gotta talk about durability because it's full PIBA. We've both raced in it a bunch. You ran 100 miles in it before racing in it. I went and did 62 miles continuously in this shoe. For the record, I did not touch them once during the race. I tied them before the race. I untied them after the race.
same.
I went full Courtney Dauwalter for over 12 hours. I did not touch my shoes once. I have never done that ever in a 100K or longer race. I had zero blisters. I had zero hot spots. Also, the first time that it ever happened. So
Same.
that was just amazing. I was when I went and ran in the shoe after Waldo, it had so much bounce still. I was blown away at how good the PIBA still felt after the Waldo 100K. That gives me great hope that this is actually going to be a pretty durable shoe. How do you feel about the durability?
I feel the same. I'm actually doing another 50K in 2 weeks. It's called the Elephant Rock 50K, and I'm planning to I'm going to run it back with this shoe and see how it performs. And if we do, like a sort of like an assortment episode coming up soon, I can kind of give you more of a picture of
Yeah.
how it responded.
Yeah, and like, from an upper standpoint and an outsole standpoint, like my outsole is still brand new looking. Like the 4 millimeter lugs and the way that they've got them spaced out, like at the rate I'm going, I'm gonna run like over 500 miles, no problem
Yeah.
with for this outsole. I feel like, as the midsole has to be the first thing that's going to wear out. I mean, maybe it's the upper for you because of that stick that you fought, but I'm going to keep running in this shoe. This is going to, I was going to do the North Face Vective Pro 2 as like my long-term, wear once a week sort of shoe, but I changing my mind, clipping this is the Instagram reel. Since we started reviewing shoes, there hasn't been a shoe that we've tested that almost made me want to stop reviewing shoes and just like keep running in this. I like it that much where I'm just like, dude, like I wouldn't wear it every day, but like I want to keep wearing this shoe like multiple times a week. And I'm sad that I can't because there's other shoes we need to run in. Last bit, thanks to everyone for watching this. Like, I know we could have done like 3 different Tecton X videos, but instead we're just going to do one long one. We'll chunk it all out, click through the chapters, blah, blah, blah. Value. This shoe is freaking expensive. That's the part that makes me sad. It's $275. At face value, it's like, dude, no one should ever pay $275 for a shoe. But road racing shoes have been $250 for years. The North Face Vective Pro 2 is $250. The Ultrafly is $260. The Mont Blanc Carbon is $260. Speedlands are $275. The Gravic Speed Ultra is $220, $230.
30, I think. Remember.
The Tecton X2 was $225. I absolutely believe this shoe is $50 better than the Tecton X2.
I agree. I think this is the standard for $270. I would pay $300 for the shoe. I think this is the standard for $275.
I agree. Like, I think now in the hyper premium price point of shoes, like we're talking the Nordas, the Speedlands, any of the other carbon plated expensive shoes, this is my favorite one. And if I'm throwing down a chunk of change for something that I now know that I can do a long race in and it still works fine afterwards, because I don't want to spend $275 on a one and done shoe. Because I don't believe that's the best shoe for an ultra. Like if it's dead after I race 100 milers in it, then it's probably dead at 50 miles and I'm probably leaving time out on the table running in a dead shoe. But this shoe still feels great. So it's like, shoot, I could potentially do another race in it. I could do a whole nother training block. You could train a bunch and then race in it. Now you're buying a trainer and a racer and it still works. $275 starting to feel a little bit less bad. I didn't get any blisters on my foot. I haven't lost any toenails. It has improved the quality of my life. $275 now doesn't feel that bad. And for the record, prior to getting this shoe, like when I first saw it at the running event, I thought $275 was absolutely ludicrous and it pissed me off. But now I'm like, damn, compared to the market, this is a very good shoe. It's $15 better than the Nike. It's $25 better than North Face. Like, damn, $275. I hate it, but like, shoot, it's fun.
I have one comment and one question for you. I know we're on almost the time. Comment. I feel like this is the most fanboy we have ever been for a shoe in the history of conversational pace. Although I think so. You've really liked the Speed Ultra too. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and think about mine. But and then question for you, and maybe this is for the audience as well. Over under 2 additional shoe brands with this integrated mid-crew gaiter design in a shoe available to the consumer by 2026.
How many copycats do we get from this?
How many copycats do we get?
Yeah, that's great. We're recording this review before the shoe comes out, but if I get it together and release it, when you're watching this, because I know you've hit that subscribe button, you've hit the bell, you've watched this video, it's August 13th. The shoe comes out tomorrow. If you want to try out the Tecton X3, feel free to use our link below. Get the shoe from our friends at Running Warehouse. It goes live on the 14th. Your purchase will help support the channel. It'll allow us to keep running and testing shoes. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are Finn and I drinking like way too much Tecton X3 Kool-Aid right now? Or did Hoka actually do something like really fun with shoes? Yeah, let us know what you think. And also, if there's anything we missed, just ask us in the questions. We'll answer it. We love engaging with the internet on shoes. Final thoughts?
The CP crew always shows up in the comments, so I trust.
Yep, yep. Shouts to the CP crew. This was a good one. We'll do a full trail super shoe comparison video soon. Finn, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service racing in the Tecton X3. Best of luck to you in your next one. Hopefully, that rip in the upper doesn't get any bigger, but we'll let you go now, and we will see everyone in the next episode of Conversational Pace.